Today we're talking about the Nintendo 64. It's a console that holds a special place in the hearts of many gamers who grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s. The N64 was released over 25 years ago, but it quickly became a go-to source of entertainment for kids across the globe. I mean, how could you forget those late-night sleepovers playing GoldenEye 007, racing around the tracks in Mario Kart 64, or destroying friendships in a game of Super Mario Party? The N64 was a console that brought people together with 4 controller ports, which allowed you to play with all your friends and family, but it wasn't just a console. It was a gateway to memories that will last a lifetime. So grab your rumble-pak, plug in your expansion pack, and join us as my buddy Derek and I reminisce about the Nintendo 64 and all its classic games and the moments we shared with friends and family on Generation S.
What is it?
It's time to go back.
Welcome.
Hey, and welcome back to Generation S. It is a podcast about growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. I'm Dan Kemp, and I'm joined today by a good friend of mine. I've known him for over 15 years, and actually a returning guest to the show. He is the co-owner of Texoma Esports, Derek Taylor. Derek, welcome back, man.
Dude, thanks for having me back. It was a blast last time, and I'm looking forward to this episode as well.
Absolutely. Well, I'll give it a quick plug. So we talked Nickelodeon a couple months back for our New Year's nonstop Nickelodeon extravaganza. In fact, I think we did 2 episodes. We did the Nicktoons episode, and then we did Nickelodeon Games and Sports. So check those out if you're in the mood for Nickelodeon. But today, we are continuing our journey through the world of Nintendo consoles, more specifically Nintendo consoles that were around during our childhood, so the 90s, the early 2000s. And the reason I'm doing this, as I've said before on the show, is this month is Mario month, as far as I'm concerned. March 10th is Mario Day, so I just decided, you know what, let's just make the entire month all Nintendo. And so that's what we've been doing, man.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to talk Nintendo with you.
Yeah.
I know you covered the original NES earlier.
Yeah, and then last week we did Super Nintendo, but you, my friend, you're going to help me talk about the Nintendo 64.
Ooh, the 64 bits of greatness.
Yes, and funnily enough, I didn't realize this at first until you told me, but neither of us actually owned an N64 growing up, but we played it a lot at friends' houses, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I didn't actually own my first Nintendo 64 until I was like 20 or something, 20-ish.
Yeah, I think I was like 17 or 18, and I was like in college, and like we bought one, and it was, or maybe I was a little younger, but either way, it definitely wasn't part of like the core memories of playing video games as a younger kid. But again, I had friends. I had 2 or 3 friends that I would be over there regularly playing the game. So I think we can definitely still cover a lot of ground today. But I mean, let's start with, as far as your earliest memories of the N64. Obviously, tell me about, your friend's house. What, was it sleepovers? How did you first get introduced to this console?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been a gamer at heart since I was like 3 years old. My dad got me into, Nintendo, playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's my favorite game of all time. The arcade edition, of course, for the NES. But, yeah, just grew up playing video games, and I did unfortunately jump from Nintendo to Sega, then Sega to PlayStation. So I didn't stay on the Nintendo bandwagon.
That was the same path I took, so don't feel bad.
Right. But that was the great thing about growing up in the 90s is people actually went to each other's houses, and, and we hung out with our friends in their house. So your friend would have the N64 or the other consoles that you didn't. So you would either take turns trying to beat the dungeon in Zelda, or hacking it up on Mario Party, or what have you.
Man. There's a lot of friendships on Mario Party, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit here. So, and I think what was so great about the N64 is, because again, we didn't own it, so it gave us an excuse to go to our friends' houses, and Boy, I tell you, I made friends with people that I didn't think I wanted to make friends with until I realized that they had a Nintendo 64 or a console that I didn't own, and all of a sudden, this guy's my best friend. You know, it was fantastic. But what was really great about the N64 was the fact that you had 4 controller ports. I think that was the first console to have 4. You could play with up to 4 friends, and there was plenty of games where you could do that.
It was the first console that was built into. I don't know if you guys touched on it. I'll be honest, I wasn't a good enough fan and caught up on your NES episode. But in my game closet to my right here, I actually have a adapter that runs
the multi-tap adapter.
Yeah, the multi-tap adapter for the NES.
Yep, I remember. I didn't own one back in the day, but I had a couple of games where you could use it.
Yeah, it's called the Satellite, I think, or something like that. It's crazy.
That we did. It's funny because we did cover accessories, and for some reason that did not come up at all. Actually,
I think I didn't know about it until I was like 25. So
no, you know how I knew about it? Again, I know this is N64, but as far as the original Nintendo, so one of the games I owned was A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a terrible game, but I love it. I have a very soft spot for this game. But I noticed when you go to the select screen to pick the number of players, you could choose up to 4 players. But if you don't have the multi-tap adapter plugged in, you can only go to 2, and that's it. You can't pick 3 or 4.
Interesting.
And so the person who gave me the game said, yeah, there's a special device you can buy where you can play 4 Nintendo controllers at the same time. And it just blew my mind. I was like, what?
Dude, the craziest thing about it is it's wireless.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I think I didn't realize that.
There's an IR receiver that plugs into the NES, and then it ports it to the actual multi-tap thing, which runs on like 6D batteries.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I wonder what the battery life is in that bad boy. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about N64.
We're talking about N64, and I will make this claim. I feel like the N64 and its plethora of multiplayer games is the reason, or a big reason, why we have so many successful multiplayer franchises to this day.
Oh, I'm going to agree with you. I mean, I'm sure we'll get there, but I'll go as far as to say that the N64 probably kicked off the first person shooter versus.
I think so. I mean, you had. So here's the thing: you had like on PC, you had Doom, you had Quake, you had all these first person shooters that were mouse and keyboard. But for the rest of us who weren't PC gamers, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, I didn't really have any PC games, and so. Yeah, you had these multiplayer shooter. I mean, we'll just be honest, it's GoldenEye. That's the one we're talking about here. But I would say, and I think you'll agree, without GoldenEye, you wouldn't have the success of something like Halo. I don't think that was attributed to Doom. I think you have to give GoldenEye most of the credit there as far as wanting that multiplayer split screen experience. That was the thing, is you had the split screen.
Yep.
And my God, yeah, so many parties where that was the go-to thing. We would play N64, but it was also the biggest reason why we got into fistfights at 2 a.m. Whether it was screen looking in GoldenEye or again, playing Mario Party and burning your fingers off trying to run the joystick around in tug of war with Bowser. It was a nightmare. So, but do you remember the first N64 game you ever played?
Man, the ones that stand out to me, the biggest memory I have, I used to go to my buddy Ray's house, and we would sit there and just try to grind through Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Yep.
And just being fascinated by the graphics and the puzzles and trying to figure things out on our own, because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the walkthroughs and the guides. So you had to really sit down and figure things out. So a lot of near and dear memories of that game in my heart.
Well, that was in the N64 in general. It was the first 3D video game system I'd ever seen. So you talk about the kind of those 3D graphics. Let's be honest, they really haven't aged well. There's very few games on the N64 that look good today. I would venture to say there's like maybe less than 5 that you say, it doesn't look too bad. Zelda's not one of them. Let's be honest. Now I will say
it's
this.
A little blocky.
So a big reason why I was so excited to do this N64 episode is because I've been playing a lot of N64 games on my Nintendo Switch, because that's part of the Switch Online library. And for the NES, I did a top 10 list of my favorite NES games that are in the library. I can't do that with the Switch because I didn't really own any of these games growing up, so it wouldn't be fair. But I played a lot of them, Zelda included. I've gotten further now in Zelda than I ever did as a kid. I'll say that. and it's not very far. Like I just got to where like Link is an adult now. now. Like,
okay.
So
yeah.
I never owned the game. I didn't have an N64. I would play it at friends' houses, and they didn't know what they were doing. They were just kind of running around playing the ocarina and trying to figure out what songs we could do on the ocarina, because that was always fun, right? It's like, what songs can you learn to play?
Yep.
So anyway, I've been playing a lot of N64 games. I've been playing that, and I've been playing the hell out of GoldenEye as well, which is so fun. And I'm going to just go ahead and spoil it. I was going to say, I was going to save it for the end. Like, how do I feel about GoldenEye now? Dude, it friggin' rules. I am having so much fun playing GoldenEye still.
It's fun, but the controls don't hold up. Like,
I know, I love it. It's the only first-person shooter I've ever been good at, and I'm still good at it. So, well, because you have the auto-aim feature, right? Where, like, you're literally just running around, and the gun will point right at the guy you're trying to shoot. You don't have to worry about aiming it. It just takes care of it for you. And once you figure out that you can just kind of still strafe around corners with the other thumbstick, you're golden, man. It's a little different. It's funny, because I played that, and then I went and played a newer game. I played Metroid Prime that just came out on the Switch as well. And that's more of a traditional first-person shooter control stick scheme. And I was I couldn't figure it out at first. I was so confused because I was in GoldenEye mode, and I switched right over to it. And I was like, what am I don't know what I was doing. I kept screwing up.
So are you playing? Did you get the N64 controller for the Switch?
I did not. So they do have it.
They do have it,
but it keeps getting sold out. So I've not even bothered to try to buy it.
I've got two of them.
Son of a bitch. I mean, so how does it feel to play those games with it? I mean, it's got to feel pretty good, right? I assume the controller works good.
It definitely. If we're on the perfect podcast for it, it's super nostalgic feeling just to go back and play. Yeah. With those controls as they were designed.
Yeah, because it's a weird looking controller. I mean, let's be honest. It's a very strange controller. It's got the 3 prongs. It looks like the end of like Poseidon's staff or something. Man, it's wild.
Yeah.
Was there ever a nickname for it? Like, I know, like, all the other controllers get like nicknames. Like the N64 or the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, like they call it the dog bone controller. Was there ever? We should call it the Trident controller. I guess that's probably the thing, right? I mean,
sure.
But it had so many weird buttons, and it was cool though, man, because it had all these weird buttons, and it had a joystick in the middle. Which, again, no controllers had a joystick at the time, so that was revolutionary for console games, at least. Because you had arcade joysticks, but this was like a miniature joystick. And some games used it very well. Some games, not so much. I will say, like, most of the main, the mainline Nintendo games took very full advantage of having that joystick. I mean, you talk about like Super Mario 64, right? That was, I mean, the whole thing was you were learning how to, move around in a 3D environment using a 3D, like a joystick, which was, at the time it was revolutionary. And not only that, but think about this too, as far as like the camera in a game. This was the first game to have a camera system where you can move and look at different perspectives, because you're in a 3D world. You need to be able to look around.
Yeah, and that's like the biggest thing that doesn't quite hold up for the N64 games is they were bumbling around trying to figure it out, and they didn't quite nail it. They got it to work for their game, but it's not the greatest.
But they got the idea. I mean, they came up with the idea of doing that. You know what I mean? So I said this about the Nintendo to the Super Nintendo, and I'm going to say it again about the N64 to the GameCube. The N64 walked so that the GameCube could fly. Everything about. Everything about 3D gaming was introduced in N64, and then it was perfected, or at least, it was vastly improved by the time you got to the GameCube, and that, including the camera. The controller looked a little more normal, you know what I mean? It was still funky, and we'll talk about that next week. I got my buddy Dan Vorbeck coming on for that one, but...
you mean the greatest controller ever made?
The GameCube controller? You want to talk about it for a second? What are your thoughts on it, man?
I'm considering that it's still the #1 controller used for Smash today.
Yeah, that's true.
Even on Ultimate.
So because you host a lot of Smash tournaments, would you say that's like the go-to controller for a lot of these?
Oh yeah, But the newer age kids, they'll probably use Pro Controller, but the old heads like me,
it's just that good. It's the muscle memory, right?
I guess. I don't know. I have no qualms with either. But people swear by the GameCube controller.
The GameCube, well, and that's true because they do. They re-released it for pretty much every console since the GameCube. Like, I mean, because you could play GameCube games on the Wii, so that was built in. But then when the Wii U came out, they released a GameCube controller for Smash on the Wii U, and then the same thing with the Switch. They re-released the GameCube controller for the Switch, which again, so I mean, you're right, it has to have stood the test of time because it's not being used simply for nostalgia purposes. It's actually a preferred functional controller. So
Yep.
definitely. Yeah, I would agree. And I'll talk about it more with Vorbeck next week. I'd love to get his thoughts too. So, all right. So Zelda, definitely a go-to game for you. Did you play, we just touched on it, but like Mario 64, was that in the rotation for you at friends' houses?
So I think I played more Mario 64 on emulators than I have on the actual console.
Oh, really?
But I love that game so much.
Yeah. It's a good game. I mean, I think I don't think it holds up as well as some of the other 3D Mario games, though.
I mean, the only thing that really doesn't hold up for me is the camera. And
yeah, I mean, it might
just kind of get used to it when you play it. So,
and then I haven't played N64. I haven't played Mario 64 with the N64 controller lately. I've been using like the Pro controller, and the joystick is also really sensitive. So maybe if I were to use the old school Mario 64 controller, because that was the other thing I felt like I had issues with, was that it was kind of slippery to control. But maybe that's not a problem with the N64 controller, and it probably holds up a little nicer.
I'm not sure, man. It's been a while since I actually sat down and played it. So.
All right, so let's talk about some other games we play. I mean, I feel like we're probably going to be covering the same games because, for the most part, they were the games that most kids played. I mean, we talked about GoldenEye. So with GoldenEye, like, did you have like multiplayer rules that you guys stood by when you played?
So I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, it was just me and my buddy Ray, so like we didn't really get into GoldenEye. I didn't really get into I really didn't get into like the GoldenEye competitive shooting scene.
Oh my gosh, that's the only one I ever played, like which is with friends, obviously. So, listen, this is my time to shine. Let me tell you about the joys of GoldenEye. So,
take me back, Dan. Take me back.
So, listen, just let's backtrack a little bit. So, GoldenEye, obviously based off of the movie that had come out like a year prior. James Bond, GoldenEye 007, starring Pierce Brosnan. They decided, hey, let's make this into a game. And I mean, lo and behold, it was made by the same people that made all the Donkey Kong games, Rare. They also are known for making Banjo-Kazooie and a few other fantastic titles. And so they decided to make a first-person shooter about GoldenEye, which, looking back, is a very weird choice. You know what I mean? Like, rarely did you have a movie game that was so popular. Like, this was a thing. I'd never seen the movie. I still, to this day, have never seen the movie GoldenEye.
I haven't either.
No, but you know what? I bet you I could probably pick up the plot points from playing this game so many times. And so, you had two modes. You had single player and you had multiplayer. So single player was just playing through the campaigns that were based off of the movie scenes. And it was pretty straightforward. That's what I've been playing lately at home here, is just, going through the different levels. And it's fun. It's definitely challenging, but it's fun. But what everyone loved about GoldenEye and what it's always remembered for is the multiplayer mode, because it was really the first of its kind where you could have up to 4 friends and you would choose characters from the movie to play as, and you pick a map and you'd run around and you just shoot each other, and that was it. And it was, you had different modes where you had a timer where you had to get as many kills as possible. You had like 1st to 10. You could choose the different weapons that you could use, and there was a lot of different weapon types. There was one that I remember very fondly. It was called Slappers Only, where literally the only thing you could do was judo chop your people to death. So you couldn't hide out and snipe people. You just had to walk up to them and slap them in the face. The first one I ever played, and I just was so mad, it was with the Golden Gun. So the Golden Gun was just the ultimate weapon because one shot killed you no matter what. And I played with my friend, one of my best friends, and he knew where the Golden Gun was in every single map, and I had no idea. And so every time we would play, it would just be me and him. It wouldn't be 4 people. He would go straight to the Golden Gun, and he would camp out in the room. And so whenever I ran over to get the, go in there to try to get him, he would one-shot me as soon as I walked in, because remember, it had that auto-aim feature. Yep. And so I was down. I'd get so pissed. So I hated the Golden Gun because it was so cheap. And then there was another rule we had where one of the other characters you could select if you unlocked him was a guy named Odd Job, which was from...
Can't play as Odd Jobs. Not allowed.
Even that. Yeah, so no Odd Job. And the reason is because he's about 3 feet tall in this game. He's like half the height of everybody else, which meant that your auto aim was all thrown off. You couldn't, aim at the... you couldn't hit him. And so everyone said no Odd Job. Or if you really pissed your friends off, they made you play as a guy called Jaws, who was about twice the height of everybody else. So you were like an easy target for headshots. I didn't know.
That one I didn't know.
So Jaws was a punishment, Odd Job was a cheat. And pretty much everyone in between was basically fair game. And I always picked, I always picked 006, Alec Trevelyan. He was the villain in the movie because he just looked cool. So anyway, GoldenEye, man. fantastic game. A lot of friendships ruined, but it was okay the next day. But God, I've not played it multiplayer since I got it on the Switch. So
we should do that. I have it.
I mean, if you have it, dude, we'll set it up. We'll do it. It'll be a blast.
I do want to talk about the controls for a minute for GoldenEye because like I'm sure a lot of listeners they've probably played a first person shooter in some form or fashion. But for those that didn't know, so the N64, like we talked about, the controller is trident shaped. It has 3 handles. The left side had a D-pad. The right side has the A and B button. And then in the middle prong or the middle handle, there was the joystick. So you didn't have this movement and aiming thing like you do with 2 joysticks on an everyday controller that you would use today. So you had to use I forgot about the C buttons that were above the A and B button on the right
That was
side.
a weird thing. That was a one-off, I feel.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Sort of. It was different. But so you would have to you could just kind of move around, and then if you really wanted to pinpoint aim, I think you have to hold one of the triggers down. Is that correct?
It's one of the shoulder buttons.
Yeah, one of the shoulder buttons down. There's an
and you had to
L&R
stand
button.
still. You couldn't do it while you're moving.
Right. Yeah, you couldn't move at the same time, and that was the only way you could like actually aim. So yeah, a lot of the brunt work was done by the aim assist and the auto aim features of it.
Which apparently you can turn off, by the way. Why anyone would want to, I don't know, because it's damn near impossible. Oh my God, ridiculous. Like I'll play on like the hard mode. I won't turn off auto aim. Screw that.
But while you're moving, I think it was the C buttons that would like turn you left and right.
Yes, the left and right, and then up and down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's super weird, and that's why, like, if you try to play it on an emulator today, unless the Switch.
Well, so actually, you wouldn't turn with the C buttons. You would strafe left and right with them. You would turn, and you would do a whole circle with just the one joystick, and that's what threw me off. Because in modern games, the one joystick goes up, down, left, right, like and then the other joystick
forward,
turns
backwards,
you
strafe left
exactly.
And right. Yeah.
So that's what threw you off.
At least, and I think that was like the default controls. So I know that GoldenEye actually has a bunch of different sets of controls. Did you know that they actually do have a dual stick control?
Yes, I did.
Where you use 2 Nintendo 64 controllers.
I was going to say, back in the day, you could use 2 controllers, and then because you could dual wield guns in that as well, and so that's how you would do it. You had 2 triggers, 2 sticks. But man, God, I mean, that's 2 slots taken up, and
yeah,
I never tried it, but I'm sure it works.
I didn't know about it until like a year ago, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, God, I guess they were forward thinking.
Yeah, I mean, props to them for having it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Oh man, good stuff. Well, listen, let's talk about some other multiplayer games because there were quite a few. So the next one I want to talk about is one that I'm still playing to this day in modern iterations. It's the Mario Kart games. Mario Kart 64. I'm assuming you've played Mario Kart 64.
Mario Kart 64 is my favorite Mario Kart game.
Really?
Yes.
And you've played the newer ones.
I've played the newer ones. And the fact that they will not give us the battle mode for Mario Kart 64 is a shame, because that is the most fun that you can have in that game.
Yes. And that, again, I mean, back in the day, you didn't race. I mean, you would race with friends, but battle mode was where it's at. Every multiplayer game we had, we wanted to beat the shit out of each other, apparently, because that was literally all we ever did in these games. I
mean, realistically, that was the first time we could do it with 4 people. Like,
it's true, and it would be insane, especially because back then, this is crazy too. Like back in the day, because it would split the screen up into 4 separate screens for you and your friends to play on. Now you think these days, I'm playing on my old 65 here. That's great, no big deal. I'm only about 4 feet from the TV anyway. Back in the day, you're lucky if your friend had like a 32-inch TV, and that's split up into 4 panels, and it's probably high up on the old broken TV that's sitting there as a furniture piece, and you're sitting far back because your parents don't want you sitting too close. So man, how we got away with doing that and actually enjoying ourselves is insane to me, because I cannot imagine going back to doing that now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that how much bigger TVs of today are.
It's kind of spooky, yeah. Like, and it's like cheap. Like, I've got my 65-inch sitting in. Actually, this was free. It came with the couch I bought. It was like a Best Buy deal, or not a Best Buy deal, but a Rooms to Go deal. But like, we got a 75-inch in the. No, it's a 65. We have a 65-inch in the living room that I think we paid maybe $400 for, or $500.
Right.
Like, it's nuts. Whereas back in the day, if you're getting a 48-inch TV, you're dropping almost $2,000. And that was
wild.
A big TV back then. That was the one that was like the flat screen in the front with the speakers underneath, and it was like, with the wood paneling and everything.
Yep.
So if you had that, you were golden. But most friends I had, even my rich friends, did not have these giant TVs.
I got a old TV right behind me.
Oh, that's amazing. And you got and you got the Mario. Sorry, no one can see this because we're just doing this over audio. But he showed me. He showed me his kind of game room setup, and he's got the old Mario Brothers arcade cabinet. Is that a legit, or is that a modded
it's
cabinet?
Legit. No, it's not modded at all.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Wow. I love it. So Mario Kart 64. Why is it your favorite Mario Kart of all time?
Just
is it just the battle mode?
Just the battle mode.
Okay.
Just something about it. The
it was a simple thing
in the block forts, and
you just drive around. Well, okay. So what's that one that nobody ever picked? You know what I'm talking about, right? The big hole in the middle, the donut tower. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Because everyone always drove off the front of it and like fell and lost a balloon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your games were over too fast.
And they were, and so let's just in case somebody here listening has not played battle mode in Mario Kart 64, it's pretty straightforward. So you're driving your character around and you're picking up items and you're trying to just knock balloons off of your friend's carts. So you each have 3 balloons. Basically, you hit your friend 3 times and they're out. And it's right. Very basic. It's very straightforward. And when your friends die, they become bombs and they can roam around and they can blow up other people. And now I never did this
one time.
You just one time. That's what I was going to ask you. How many times could you use the bomb?
Yeah. So as soon as you exploded, that was it. So people could I think you could be taken out by like the items. So if you drove over a banana or a shell, or the bomb would blow up. So it would waste it, or you could try to kamikaze and take somebody out with you.
Yeah. Well, there it is, man. So good.
But yeah, dude, it was so much fun. Like you could just the different mechanics. Like Dan said, you had 3 balloons at the start. There are certain things you could do. Like you could, I'm pretty sure you could boost. If you boosted it into another person, you would steal a balloon from them. So you would get a balloon back or add to.
Yep.
But yeah, you would just go through with bananas and upside down question mark blocks and red shells and green shells and just.
I think the red shell was like the go-to item in that mode for me. Anyway, because it was the red shell was basically a homing missile. As long as you weren't near a wall, you threw that red shell, it was going to hit your target. You were pretty golden there. So that was, I think, my go-to. That and like the star, where you just get invincibility and you can just run over people. But again, if you got somebody who knows how they're playing against you, they can outmaneuver you pretty easily because you couldn't really. I mean, the maneuvering with the star, you're going too fast and. Oh God, good times. Who was who was your go-to driver in battle mode, or was it different than who you would use in racing mode?
No, my go-to character is Yoshi in every Mario Kart.
Yeah, Yoshi.
Yep.
I feel like he's pretty popular, so that's So for me in Mario Kart 64, actually Bowser.
Yeah.
So
you like that slow start, huh?
Well, I like the slow start, but in battle mode, especially if you hit a guy full speed, you're taking him out. You're taking a balloon. Yep. So that to me is like you don't even need an item. If you go fast enough, you are the weapon, which I thought was pretty cool. But no, I liked him because, again, like his top speed was faster than pretty much everybody. He just took a minute to get going. But as long as you were a good driver and could get around the corners,
right?
I mean, you had nothing to worry about. And let's be honest, back then, those courses, they weren't that hard to drive around. Like if you play some of the more modern Mario Kart games, they're pretty tough. Some of them are.
Yeah, they put an assist mode in Mario Kart 8 for a reason.
They did. What I'm trying to get my kids, I want my kids to play with me. They don't like racing games, but like, I'm trying to tell them like all you need to do is like try to go straight and it'll do the rest for you. Just relax because it does. It gets very intense. It's and it's funny because they'll upload. Like you can play on old Mario Kart 64 courses in the newer Mario Kart games. It's like a throwback map.
And playing them too.
Well, but they have to make them harder. Otherwise, they're like done in 2 seconds and they're super easy to do now. So they have to add new obstacles and they have to make it harder to steer and all this craziness because they're just too easy otherwise. So let's keep talking about multiplayer because this is really the reason people are listening is because of multiplayer.
But then here's my hot take.
Okay, here we go.
All right. there's a more superior racing game out there, a battle racing game out there. And
for the N64?
For the N64, and it's a shame that they didn't make a sequel or didn't continue it. And it is Diddy Kong Racing.
Yes, and I knew you were going to bring it up because I know you love it. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've never played it in my entire life.
That is unfortunate.
I'm hoping they release it on the Switch because I'll absolutely play it.
I do too, because it's just incredible. It's better in every way. Like,
so tell me about that, because I never understood like what was so great about it, but I don't know anything about it.
Man, so Diddy Kong Racing, weirdly enough, it was a game that was not supposed to star Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong was just put in because he was a more popular character and took it over. Nintendo kind of has a trend of doing that, if you're not familiar with the Super Mario Brothers 2.
Absolutely. Of course I am.
I know you are. That was for the listeners. But anyway, Diddy Kong Racing was actually had a bunch of different animals as your character, and of course, some different stats that didn't necessarily know based on your size and things.
Now, get all the action of GoldenEye, Kobe Bryant in NBA courtside, the WCW versus NWO, or Diddy Kong Racing for new additions to the Player's Choice Library for just $39.95. Don't miss it.
And he had
Yo, listen up. We will not live in a two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction
Or zig when we can zag.
We will walk through walls. We will take a look around us.
we will not be confined.
We believe in the path of least limits.
We won't be told how to view the world.
We will experience true freedom. We will not compromise.
We will live the game through our hands.
We will be in control of something.
We will change the system.
If you didn't use that missile and you grabbed another red balloon, it would give you 3 missiles.
Okay.
And if you if you grabbed a third balloon, it would give you like a homing missile.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you could upgrade your weapon.
Yeah, so that has some strategic gameplay as well.
Paperboy is back, delivering justice.
Overall, so much
with
fun.
25 neighborhoods, 3D environments, and all new targets.
And all of this
Paperboy, only on Nintendo 64 from Midway.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Good game. Way to go. See that one
I
guy?
definitely need to. You know what game I have played?
Check out the new ride. It's
on the Switch. It was
Whoa.
Crash Team Racing.
Bummer. Dinosaurs hate being
that's
smashed
one
on
I never
something.
played
Remember
as a
new
kid.
Mario Tennis, only on N64 rated E.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I feel like it's very similar as far as like, you know,
we
items
didn't call it
and,
but a wild party
like
over
different
here. Know anything
modes and
about
things
it?
like that. So I
Right.
definitely want to check out Diddy
Which
Kong
one of you
Racing. I
jokers
hope it
goes
does
by the
come
name
out,
Mario?
eventually.
Step outside, please.
Welcome to Mario
be honest,
Kart,
Donkey Kong
where you and
64
3 friends battle it out all night long. With 60 adventure boards and 50 mini games, this party's just getting going.
Yeah, I haven't sat
Mario
down.
Party, only on
It's
Nintendo
okay. I mean,
64.
it's basically like, you know, a precursor to Banjo-Kazooie, and it was an outdated version of that, to be honest with you. So it's not missing much in my opinion.
Yeah. Fun fact: Banjo made his first appearance in Diddy Kong Racing before his
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. And then they said, "Oh, this guy looks cool. Let's give him his own game."
And he loves to combine these in new ways
Interesting.
to
There's
destroy
a couple
his
interesting
enemies.
characters
So,
in
we
Diddy Kong
have
Racing.
3 wonderful,
Are you familiar with Conker's Bad Fur Day?
I sure am.
2 wonderful
Conker's
pets.
also in Diddy Kong Racing.
Kirby
Well,
64.
I mean, I guess they just
Rated
pulled
E
out all
for
the
everyone.
stops, man.
He's not nearly as crass. Yeah, that's an excellent word. Excellent word. He's just a cute little squirrel. And
So Conker's Bad Fur Day, that was a game, just,
All you
again,
need is
for those who
Pokemon
are
Snap.
curious.
It's a
It was
free
a
Pokemon
pretty
game for
straightforward
N64.
platformer game,
Find 'em,
you know,
frame
much
'em,
like
and
if you
shoot.
played
You can even bring your
Banjo-Kazooie or
Snap
Donkey
cartridge to a
Kong.
participating
The only
Blockbuster
difference
video
is
and
this
print
one
out
was
stickers of your
definitely
favorites.
rated M for mature, in the sense that
Pokemon Snap, gotta catch
Conker
'em.
was a potty mouth. I didn't play much. Did you play any Conker's Bad Fur Day?
Introducing Nintendo Score 64 and win at Taco Bell. Just peel the coin off the lid, score 64, and you could win an N64 system, cash, or millions of other great prizes. And who knows who'll win the Porsche Boxster. It's Score 64 and win, only at Taco Bell.
pee on people and stuff. Like it's such a weird thing for Nintendo to do.
The one memory I have of that game is one of the first bosses you fight against is literally a giant pile of shit with corn for teeth.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's just so you can understand. That's the vibe they were going for in this game. If you're at all curious, I highly doubt that game is going to get re-released. Although I could be wrong. They may eventually surprise us and throw it in on the Switch Online library. I don't know.
I don't see it happening.
No, and but if it did, I'd play it. I wouldn't play it with my kids, but I would play it and I'd probably enjoy it a little bit. Oh man! So let's talk about some other games then. As far as multiplayer, so the only other genre of games that I remember loving was the wrestling games. Did you ever play any of the wrestling games on N64?
I don't remember which one it was, but that is the one that's on N64. There's 3 or 4 for everyone. I'm sure there's one that you have that's probably better than the rest, but I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah. So talk about WWF Memories. It was basically the best version of those games.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Now everyone thinks they can skate like Tony. Now available on Nintendo 64 and Game Boy Color, rated E for everyone.
And because it was WCW, which was definitely the wrestling company I was more of a fan of back then.
Killer outfit. Too bad the nightlife sucks. Dracula returns to Castlevania on Nintendo 64.
There was less you could do, but it played a little bit better.
When I decided to train for this, I heard it all. Jehu, you fool, this is the desert. Jehu, it's 110 degrees. Crazy teams. I practice around 5-6 hours a day with the rumble-pak. On the slopes, in the half-pipe, Jehu is there. It's very spiritual. Just you and the mountain, and the snowboard, and the game.
1080 snowboarding only on Nintendo 64. Real close to the real thing.
I warn you, snowboarders. Watch out for Jehu.
Accessories, because in all these episodes this month, we've covered accessories for the consoles. The Super Nintendo didn't have
this time.
much. We touched on a little bit.
The crop
is
you.
Introducing Body Harvest, the long-awaited action-adventure role-playing game from Midway, exclusively for Nintendo 64. Welcome
Nowadays,
to the bottom of the food chain.
The controller's going to vibrate if you take damage, or if you fall, or you get punched, whatever. It's going to rumble. That's just like it's built in. There are no controllers that don't do it. As far as
Cruising World on N64.
But the rumble-pak was the first one to do that. I don't think there was any kind of a rumble before they introduced the rumble-pak
spider went up the water spout. Along came Buck Bumble and wiped the spider out.
Say hello to Buck Bumble. He's Mother Nature's twisted little cyborg soldier in a rumble to the death with the evil insect empire.
Yeah! So don't bug me.
Buck Bumble for N64, the one and only killer bee. Ubisoft.
The joystick and the first one to have rumble, because the rumble-pak came out
Gary, it's time.
soon after the console was released. I remember the first time I used it, I was playing
While I golf on Nintendo 64, for people who put golf above all else.
Gary! Yes!
Oh,
Yes!
Really? Well,
WCWNWO Revenge, only on Nintendo 64. Nintendo Power says WCWNWO Action is bigger than ever. Fans will eat this one up, featuring over 60 of WCW and NWO superstars, with custom finishes and trademark moves, 4-player Battle Royal mode with double teaming, and more weapons than ever before.
Get addicted.
Call 1-800-WCW-8661 to order now. Also available wherever video games are sold. Revenge is just too sweet.
On he goes for the 1080. Twisted Edge, 8 fearless borders, 5 body slamming tracks. Twisted Edge Extreme Snowboarding from Midway, only on Nintendo 64.
Accessories. And one of those was the rumble-pak. Put in this rumble-pak, clip into the back of the controller, and then it existed.
Whoa!
Controller the rumble first. Things that happen. Shut down. What else could you put in the back of the N64 controller? The only one I can think of is like maybe like a memory. So there was I think that was a new invention I had. Many that's how we say games. Well,
Bomberman Hero on N64.
There were certain games where you could save on the cartridge, like old school SNES games, but then there were certain ones where you had to save between and I don't know. But I remember I didn't have one of those cartridges. Certain games
Vigilante 8 for Nintendo 64. Blow up.
Cartridge accessory. Yes. Pokemon Stadium. It would allow you to take your Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow cards. I think that was all that was out.
Sorry. F1 World Grand Prix on Nintendo 64. You'll get carried away.
Play Pokemon using the Super Game Boy, similar. I think that did this.
I forget what it was called. Nintendo have that too? Super Nintendo had the Super Game Boy where you could plug in your Game Boy games into your Super Nintendo Play on the TV, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very similar to that, but this would allow you to bring in all of your Pokemon that you probably grinded for hours and hours and hours. I know I did as a kid. And allow you to go through the different battles and stadium stuff in Pokemon Stadium, which was a 64 game that came out. And then there was another weird accessory, another Pokemon one. I believe it was Pokemon Hey You Pikachu, and it was a microphone that you could yell commands at your Pikachu.
Really?
Yeah, and it had some sort of voice pattern recognition.
Interesting.
I don't believe it worked.
I didn't have that, so yeah.
I didn't have that either. I just know it existed.
So, okay, since we're talking about Pokemon games for the N64, there was another one that I think there was an accessory for as well, right? The Pokemon Snap. Didn't that come with a camera accessory?
So, I don't remember if there was a camera accessory.
Maybe not.
I know that you could take your. So there was I think it was at McDonald's. They had a deal where you could. Oh no, it was Blockbuster. You could take your memory card from your Pokemon Snap game, and you could take all of the pictures and actually have them printed out.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Pokemon Snap was a Pokemon game where you played as the photographer in the Pokemon series. I cannot remember his name. But you would go through and you would take pictures of Pokemon, and Professor Oak would rate them depending on how centered they were, how many there were in the shot. And while you did that, you would also unlock new tools and new ways to kind of mess with the Pokemon, to do different things. It is a phenomenal game. It took them way too long to make a sequel. The sequel is also good. It came out on the Switch.
Nintendo Switch. Yep. I gotta check.
Yeah,
that out
they had some really cool features with that, which was you can go and get your pictures that you took in a game printed off, and
it's pretty cool. Nowadays, you can just take a screenshot on your phone, and you're good to go, and nobody prints pictures out anyway. So, but it's funny. You threw out a ton of accessories there, and yet none of them are the other accessory that I had in mind that I was thinking of. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and it's, because I called it an accessory, but do you remember the expansion pack?
Oh, yeah. I figured we were going to get there when we talked a little bit more about Donkey Kong.
I guess. I don't know.
Because you needed it.
There were certain games, so the expansion pack was basically, I don't know what it was exactly. Was it memory or more RAM or something that you would plug into the front of your system?
I think it was, it was 8. It was either 8 or 16 megabits of RAM or memory.
For certain games that they were too powerful. The system couldn't run it on its own. It needed a little extra power.
I think only 2 games actually used it, and it was Donkey Kong 64 and Perfect Dark Zero.
Yes. Perfect Dark. No, not Perfect Dark Zero.
Perfect
That was
Dark,
the sequel.
just Perfect Dark.
Yeah, Perfect Dark, which was basically a spiritual successor to GoldenEye, I might add.
And from the same creator, I believe.
Rare, yeah. They made both games, so they made bulky ass games, man, that you had to get a little extra oomph to play them. And I didn't have one. I remember my friends would let me borrow it whenever, because he had Donkey Kong 64, so he would lend that to me with his expansion pack so that I could actually play it. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. And I was like, what the hell, man? I was so disappointed.
And this was another smart thing that Nintendo did, because this was not one that you slotted into your controller. This one actually went into the top of your N64, I believe, right?
No, it was in the front. It was like right next to the controllers. Yeah, on the top. You flip up the lid and you just you literally just push. I think there was something in there ready that you would take out, and then you would put the expansion pack in there,
space
I believe.
holder.
Yes. And then you put that in there, and then all of a sudden you're playing with super duper power. I don't know. I mean, 70, it would become the Nintendo 72, but that doesn't sound as good. So,
something like that. Yeah. I don't remember exactly how much it added. It just
right. Yeah. No, man. You know what another game was? And I'm just thinking about this because, again, we're talking and I'm remembering games that I played. Do you remember the game called 1080? It was a snowboarding game. Did you ever play that?
I did play it. I was more of a Cool Borders 2 person.
Yeah, well, that's PlayStation, so that makes sense.
But yeah.
But I played this first 1080, and that's what got me into playing Cool Borders on the PlayStation, because the snowboarding, this is fun. So I, big fan of that. Man, so many games. I mean, we could talk for hours just about all the different games out there. So we don't have to do that. There's one more game I really want to go into detail on, though, and that is, of course, the Mario Party series, because it was the first of its kind, as far as I can tell, of literally a game where you play a board game with friends and then do mini games that are easy to learn, which means that pretty much anyone can play. My wife plays Mario Party. That's how easy it is to play Mario Party. And at the same time, just alienate so many of your friends. It was quite a formula, actually.
Yeah. Think for those of you that have played Monopoly and how painstaking that can be with your family and friends, and now add mini games and unfair rules and things you could literally do nothing in that game and win somehow.
It happened the other day, actually. I was playing with my brother-in-law and my friend Dan Vorbeck. He had come to visit, and we were playing Mario Party. It was Super Mario Party. No, it was Mario Party Super All-Star, Superstars, the one that just came out that is all the old game, mini games. And I was kicking ass through the whole thing. I think I was ahead by at least 2 stars for most of that game. And then at the end, my brother-in-law, who had 1 star at the time, he ended up getting both bonus stars for the most bad luck spaces landed on and most items, some bullshit award that gave him extra stars, and he came out on top and he won for sucking the entire time.
Fairly confident that game chooses the winner right when you start.
It's got it, man. It's rigged. It's got to be rigged. Oh my god, such a fun game.
And it has been since 1996 or whatever.
Yes,
the first game
because what was so fun about that game was that you had, again, the mini games were fun. They were good, and that's really what the whole thing was all about. But because there was 2 parts. There was the board game part where you're moving around the space trying to collect stars. That's how you win. And then there's the mini games that give you coins that you can then use to buy stars. But what you can do is you can, if you know your way around a board, or you're really good at mini games, you can screw people over pretty handily that are trying to get stars. Like, for example, there's one, I don't know about in the earlier Mario Party games, definitely in the later ones, where let's say, your friend is near a star on the board. If they roll a 3 or less, or a 3 or more, they're going to get to the star to get it. You could use an item that will switch places with them so that you're all of a sudden next to the star instead. You've totally screwed them out of that star. You're going to get it, and you're going to take the lead even more. And then they just get so pissed. And it's so, because there was no other game like that. You had multiplayer games, obviously, but that was the first party game. That's why we call them party games, because it's Mario Party, and everything else is just a pale pale imitation of Mario Party. And there haven't been a lot that are that call themselves party games, as far as the mini games or anything like that. But I mean, the ones that do, they don't hold a candle to Mario Party, in my opinion.
I've got one that you should check out.
What's that?
It's called Pummel Party.
I've never heard of Pummel Party.
It's interesting. You can also, not only can you have the mini games and stuff, and you traverse around the board, but you can also deal damage and stuff to the other players on the board. It's very fun. It's very fun.
Interesting. Okay, I'll check that out then. Yeah. All right. Oh man.
So,
well, let's. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So how many times did you burn your palm playing Mario Party, trying to spin that joystick in circles as fast as possible.
Well, I was talking about that earlier. So like there's one mini game, it was the tug of war, where you were playing as it was 1 against 3 or 1 against 2, whoever it was.
Right.
And if you were Bowser especially, you had to basically rotate the joystick around as fast as possible to tug the rope and get all the other people down, to knock them off into the pit. But the only way to really do that properly was to slap the middle of your hand on the top of that hard plastic ridged joystick. I just want to make sure that description gets in there because that's crucial to this. And you basically spin your arm around as fast as you can. Now, let me tell you, that is a very effective maneuver at winning that mini game. It is also a fantastic way to get first-degree burns on your palm and was apparently a controversy back in the day.
Yeah, I think Nintendo had come out with a statement and tell you not to do that. And I think in like the remakes of the party game or the Mario Party games, they're like, don't do that. You can
they have it now.
hurt yourself.
Yeah, no, they have. So like we were playing the Mario Party game and we did the tug of war because they remade all the old mini games, and it says right in the practice room, like, do not put your hand on the middle and rotate it around. That is not safe. I'm like, they know, like they're covering their bases because
it's definitely a CYA.
You know what they could have done is just put like a soft nub accessory to put on the top of the joystick, though. You know what I mean? That you could, and then it cushions your hand.
I don't think it would have helped. I think you would have just burned through that as well.
I
then
guess,
you'd have melted plastic stuck to your hand too.
Yeah, it's true. That's a good point. Oh, jeez. Oh man. So listen, I want to talk about our Mount Rushmore of N64 games, but I also want to talk about games that have aged the best and aged the worst. What do you want to do first?
Well, before we get there, there's a huge elephant in the room that we didn't discuss, and that is the start of kind of the pinnacle of the reason I have a business running competitive sports.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna put that off to the side there. And okay. Let's talk about Smash Bros.
The ultimate party game.
The ultimate party game.
Super Smash Brothers.
Yes.
Nintendo 64.
And so you played that on N64, obviously, back in the day.
Yes, absolutely, man. That is like the only game that I remember the commercial for.
Yes, because it was amazing.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, and I don't know how you don't know, Smash has been around since the 90s. They've made a game for every single one of their consoles since then. And it's probably the most popular fighting game that Nintendo has, called Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But anyway, it is a what they call a platform fighter. Where you get to play as your favorite Mario or Nintendo IPs. So you can play as Mario or Luigi, Link from Zelda, Peach. I'm trying to think of all the originals from 64.
Pikachu.
There wasn't that many. Pikachu, Jigglypuff, Ness,
Samus
from Earthbound, Samus from Metroid.
Ness was a weird one, man.
He was big.
Because there was such an obscure title on the Super Nintendo that they're like, wow, this one's going to be a character in Smash. I mean, I guess.
Yeah. And then
did people even know who Ness was?
I mean, I think so. I think a few people had Earthbound for NES.
I guess.
I think the bigger one would be the weirder one is Captain Falcon for F-Zero.
Was he in the original or did he come out for GameCube though?
He's in the original.
He is. Okay.
Yeah, the reason he's in the original is because when the game was originally created, it was just these default polygon fighters. They didn't have any identities. They didn't have any of the IPs tied to them.
Yep.
And they created this entire moveset using these fighters. And when they finally got the green light and they were told, hey, slap Nintendo characters in there, Sakurai didn't want to just throw away this entire moveset. So they're like, who can we use that's like kind of weird and things? So he put Captain Falcon in that spot.
Captain Falcon, the race car driver.
The original, the race car driver is the original Smash Brother, I guess.
Yes.
Is the way
Well, and it's funny. I just watched a little mini documentary thing about it the other day, like kind of the evolution of Smash, and I hadn't realized that it was designed. So it was designed to be a fighting game for people who were not good at fighting games. So like an introductory, casual fighting game that was supposed to be a non-competitive kind of chill experience, and ironically, has become the. Let's be honest. It's the biggest competitive fighting game in the world at this point.
Yeah, and that's the reason why, is because it's so accessible to
anyone can be good at Smash.
Yeah, so Nintendo doesn't like to admit that or show their love, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just a super competitive game. They somehow made a solid game, even though they were just trying to do this goofy, wacky, fun stuff. But they made it to where we could turn the items off and bring it really down by, figure out who is the best in the room just on skill alone.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but human nature, we're pretty competitive.
We're competitive. Well, we just talked about like 5 games where all we wanted to do is beat the shit out of our friends. So yeah, no, we are a competitive, species. So all right, who is your go-to? Who's your main? And they call it your main. Who's your main character that you use in Smash?
In 64 or in today's Smash?
So well, if they're different, then let's do both.
So they are different. I mean, man, I never really played 64, the original, competitively, and that was definitely for fun.
Yeah.
It's probably the safe bet on that one's probably just Mario.
Okay.
I like Yoshi, but his recovery is really bad in that game.
Yeah.
But for Smash Ultimate, I've kind of gone through a few different characters. I did start with Yoshi. Moved on to Mii Sword Fighter for a little while, because the best version of you is you, right?
That's true. Yeah. That's a good point.
For any smashers out there that are thinking about picking up Mii Sword Fighter, don't. He's an awful character. Anyway. Now my main is Diddy Kong. I'm actually playing Diddy Kong now.
Okay. So I didn't have it as a kid. I didn't really play in the N64 version, but since we're talking about Smash, I do own Smash Ultimate. It's really the first Smash game I've ever played more than 20 minutes. So I started off with Mario because I'm like, oh, I love Mario. He's good. And he's actually a pretty balanced character. He's got some good moves. As I continued to unlock what is, I mean, God, is it over 100 characters? I mean, it's a good amount of characters.
Man, it's close. I want to say like 90 characters.
It's a lot, yeah, and that's
crazy.
And I bought the DLC, so I have like all the the other extra characters and stuff.
Right.
So I think my main now, like just through, who I thought was going to be my main for a while was Little Mac, because I thought, oh, this guy's badass. He punches real fast. But then I'm like, wait a second, if he gets knocked anywhere off of a platform, he's not coming back because he can't really jump and.
They did Little Mac a little dirty in Smash.
Well, he's good in the maps that don't have an edge. Like if you play in his map, the boxing ring, he's great. I enjoy using him. I think my go-to though, like I said, if it's not Mario, I've actually gotten really good with Kazuya from Tekken.
Okay.
But apparently, I think was it you who told me like he's like a cheap character that they don't allow. Are you allowed to use him in tournaments?
So yeah, every character is still. There's no bans on characters except for there's some controversy going with Steve from Minecraft right now.
Yep.
He's got some pretty broken things, but I think they're just banning the tech. At least that's what we're doing in our scene. Which means that there's a specific inputs that you can do to like give you a pretty unfair advantage.
Okay.
If you get caught doing that, then you are just disqualified.
Gotcha.
So I think that's the route that they're going. So yeah, currently no official character bans, at least in our scene in Texoma.
Okay.
But that could change.
Yeah.
Kazuya is just stupid powerful.
Yeah.
He has some stuff that you can just knock you around if you get caught, but I don't think he's completely unfair yet.
No. Oh, well, good. Then I'm good with a good character. I didn't just pick a cheap, easy character to use. Because I've always liked the Tekken game series, and so I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I'm beating up Mario as Kazuya from Tekken. That's just dope. Oh, such a good game though. And I'm sorry I totally forgot it, because it's pretty much like the reason that you have your part of your livelihood is because of that game. And yeah, man, you mentioned the commercial. Like, it's one of the greatest Nintendo commercials ever.
Oh yeah, I completely got sidetracked. For those that have not seen the commercial,
explain it for the listeners here. What this commercial was.
Imagine being a kid in the 90s where you actually have to watch commercials.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have any way to skip them. The only way you could skip them is by running to the bathroom or grabbing a snack and running back as fast as you can before the show started again.
That's right.
But imagine sitting there and you see all of your favorite Nintendo characters, or at least people in Nintendo character costumes. So Donkey Kong, Pikachu, Mario, all just holding hands and skipping through a field. And then I think Mario trips Donkey Kong and they're all just start brawling. And then it cuts to gameplay footage of Nintendo 64's Super Smash Brothers.
Yes. It is, because I do remember it was just such a 90s commercials in general, man, always had that kind of like edgy, you know what I mean, over the top. It just was. It's so 90s to look back on it now. That game came out 25 years ago. Can you believe that? That is insane.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and oh man. Well, listen, I think that actually segues more perfectly into games that have aged well and have not aged well, and then we'll wrap things up with our Mount Rushmores here. So when it comes to games that have, let's start with the worst, because that's what we've been doing for the last few episodes here. What are some games, in your opinion, on the N64 that you've tried to go back and play, and you're just like, this is garbage?
Man, it's just been a hot minute since I've actually sat down to play an N64 game. I'm gonna have to go with probably GoldenEye if you're just trying to play it on your own, because like we talked about earlier, just it just doesn't translate to new controllers well. I'm sure if I played it on the actual N64 controller, it would be fine. But if you're trying to play it on like a dual stick controller, I think it just doesn't hold up great.
That's fair. Okay. See, and it's funny because I would actually disagree with that. I think I'll say this, it's subverted my own expectations. I thought it was going to play like total trash. And then when I got into it, I was actually having a lot of fun with it. So I can't say it didn't age well, only because it's actually, for me, like I no kidding. The other night, my wife and I had a date night planned, and we were going to go out to eat. And, we dropped the kids off at her parents' house, and we're waiting to go out to eat. And I'm like, let me just play a little bit of GoldenEye before, while my wife's getting ready. And I kid you not, I sat and played probably for an hour and a half on the couch. And she's sitting next to me just on her phone like, we could go to dinner. I mean, unless you don't want to go to dinner, like you can just sit there if you want to. I'm like, oh, fine. So I saved it and I put it down, but I legit, like I've gotten sucked into that game more than I thought I would. So I can't say it hasn't aged well because I'm having a blast playing it and I'm not getting frustrated. So for me, it's fun.
So have you played it with friends, like in a multiplayer setting? You're just playing the single player?
I am. I'm trying to get my brother-in-law to come over and play with me, and he just refuses. Now,
See, I'm interested as a kid. I am interested to see if your opinion changes once
we'll
we
try.
Introduce.
You said we'll jump online and we'll do it. Yeah, absolutely, we'll do it. We'll see how it goes. So on the flip side, I'm going to say a game that I don't think you're going to agree with. I don't think Mario 64 has aged very well at all. To me, it's not fun to play for me.
I mean, I guess. I think my only thing with that, and I touched upon it before, is the camera controls. But from anything else, I think it feels fine.
No, I don't like it. Nope. Because I bought, before it came out on the Switch Online Library, they had released it in the Super Mario 3D All-Stars 3-pack. Yeah. So you had that, you had Mario Sunshine on the GameCube, and then you had Mario Galaxy. And boy, I tell you what, man, once you've played Mario Galaxy or Mario Odyssey, Mario 64 just feels like it was, it's just so bad.
Man, does it feel like it was a game that was made about 30 years ago?
I mean, you know what? It feels like it was a game that was made almost 30 years ago. Yeah, let's be honest.
I don't know. I think it still holds up pretty well. And I think Mario Odyssey is the true spiritual successor to that game. Because as soon as I started playing that game, like I was like, oh, this feels just like 64. This is That tapped into my nostalgia real fast.
See, and to me, I felt the same way. I was like, wow, this feels like playing Mario 64. And then I went back and played Mario 64 and went, this is terrible.
So maybe Odyssey ruined 64 for you.
It might have. It honestly might have. Well, but it's funny because let's talk about another game, Mario Kart 64. I would say that has aged incredibly well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't have to worry about any aging controls in that. Like,
no, it plays great. It looks fine. I mean, it looks a little dated, but it doesn't look terrible. I think because they didn't use like polygons for the racers, like they used like 2D pictures, but they had a bunch of different perspectives to make it look 3D.
Right.
So I think that actually helped it a little bit as far as making it not look terrible, because the maps themselves, they just look like whatever, but the racers, like versus like I've seen the graphics of like a Diddy Kong Racing, that is like the polygon, like it doesn't look
they're
good.
actual 3D models.
Yeah, and they look terrible. And again, I'm sure, like you said, the game probably plays fantastically, but
they play so well.
Yeah, but like Mario Kart 64, I think it still looks very good, even though it's a little dated. But and like you said, it controls incredibly well. I would say it's just as playable as the newer Mario Kart games, for me at least. I think it's just as fun. You could pick up and play and have a blast.
I agree. I do agree.
What about Zelda Ocarina of Time? Would you say that has aged well?
I still think so. I think it ages okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be up to the par that is the Breath of the Wild as far as like graphics and stuff go. But I think it still ages well. It's still it's probably my favorite Zelda, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
Okay.
Like I love Breath of the Wild. I think it's a fantastic game. I wish that instead of giving us 1 billion mini dungeons, they gave us big regular dungeons like Ocarina of Time had.
Right.
But yeah, I think it aged well. I think, man, it's been a while though. So I think it's still going to boil down to like camera controls and like going into the first person stuff when you're trying to aim the bow or the hook shot or things like that.
Well, there's no camera controls in that game. There's no camera controls in that game really, other than looking around.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you're kind of, unless you like
just
tap the Z button or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
to walk onto things. Yeah, you're right.
It's made it really hard for me because I'm playing through it right now and I'm having fun. It is a fun game, but man, some of the controls are very frustrating, and especially when you're using the Pro Controller and trying to use the C buttons for the different items. I can't tell you how many times I meant to hit left to shoot my slingshot and hit down and throw a bomb instead, and just wasted a bomb.
Yes, so I think that's like the hard comparison here though. Is like. One, that's a little on the Switch's fault for not giving you remappable buttons for some reason in their emulator. That's been around since emulators have been around, and that's all that the Nintendo Switch emulator is.
Yes.
But so I think a little bit of it is, on the presentation that you're playing on than the actual game itself.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. So, yeah, at first I was saying let's talk about the worst and then let's talk about the best, but we're kind of on polar opposites on a few of them, so we're just kind of going through. Are there any other games that stick out as really not playing or aging very well from your perspective?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Really,
now, as far as, being still replayable and aging very well, like obviously we talked about Smash. I mean, I feel like I think we agree. That's still a game you could pick up and play and have a great time with. What about the Mario Party games? Could you play the original ones at this point and still have fun?
Oh, absolutely. I think like up until the remake came out where they added the old Mario Party maps and stuff, the direction that they were going for a little bit with Mario Party was horrible.
Yes, I agree. 100%.
So I think anything on all 3 Mario Parties on Nintendo 64 are still top tier, solid.
Very good.
They hold up well. And I mean, they're a bunch of mini games built around the controller that they were built around. So
yes, and designed to take skin off of your hand. So.
I mean,
oh man. Well, listen. Let's talk about Mount Rushmores here. So we didn't do this in the last couple of episodes, but you had brought it up specifically. So I would be curious. So when we say Mount Rushmore, what is that? 4? That's four dead presidents.
I think so.
Or 5.
I don't know. I've never seen it myself. We're bad Americans.
We are. We live in a big country. We can't be expected to see all of it. Come on now.
Yeah, you know.
But anyway, okay, so let's say it's 4, okay? And I think it is 4. Who would your top 4 Mount Rushmore Nintendo 64 games be?
Star Fox 64. Easy.
Okay.
I know we didn't talk about it much, but phenomenal game. Still think it holds up very well today.
Yep.
So that's up there. I actually had a buddy for a while there. We were competing for top scores. Like we would.
That was a thing, yeah, because like people would do that back in the day. They still had the score system.
Yep.
So okay.
So yeah, we had a pretty good rivalry going for a while. We didn't talk about this game at all, and I don't know if you've played it. Bomberman 64.
I've never played it. I've heard of it. I've never played it though.
It is phenomenal. There is a versus mode in that as well. That is very fun. For those that don't know, Bomberman, you're this little dude, lays bombs, trying to save the world by blowing things up.
There it is.
So that's up there. Diddy Kong Racing.
Okay.
And
that's 3. You got one more.
Man, I guess Zelda's gonna get the short stick here, and I'm gonna go with Super Mario 64.
Oh, you gave Zelda the shaft for Mario 64.
We did.
Wow. Okay. I mean, not bad choices by any stretch of the imagination. So I will. No, it's perfectly acceptable. All right, my turn. So for me, I'll ask you first. Am I allowed to pick 2 wrestling games as separate entries, or no, because it's a wrestling game?
I mean, if
made
you're
by the same company.
If you're going to waste a slot on it, then I think it's
probably
fine.
not. No, I don't want to though. All right, I'm just going to do one. My favorite. Okay, I'll go WCW NWO Revenge, which is a wrestling game. I'm going to go Mario Kart 64. I'm going to go GoldenEye. And I'm going to go another game that we have not yet talked about, and we can certainly talk about it if you'd like. We are close to an hour and 10 minutes, so I'll leave it up to you, but Banjo-Kazooie.
Banjo-Kazooie is a solid game. Yeah.
Yeah. I love Banjo-Kazooie. I think it's a fantastic... I didn't play it much as a kid. I played it more as an adult.
I didn't either, yeah.
Have you played its spiritual successor, Yooka-Laylee?
Yooka-Laylee?
Yeah.
I did kickstart it. I played it for like maybe half an hour.
Really?
Just never went back. It's not because it was bad.
I like it. It's
by
fun,
any means.
yeah.
No, it's not because it's bad by any means. I think the whole collect-a-thon aspect of gaming is just lost on me now. Yeah. Like I don't
kids
know.
love it, by the way. It must be a kid thing. Just going around and finding everything.
It's the new shiny. You got to go find the shiny thing, you know?
Yeah. And it's, because Mario Odyssey did that with all the moons, right? Did you collect all the moons in Mario?
I have not collected all the moons. No.
No. Okay.
I tried for a while, and then I was just like, okay, this is
and that was Mario, man. Like if he couldn't keep attention, then Yooka-Laylee is not going to do it. So I totally get it. But
I need to go back and play it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but I was going to say Banjo-Kazooie, man. It was a platformer, but what I loved about it is the controls were pretty good. You had you could unlock new abilities to get to new areas, but like just the plot and the dialogue, it was a very snarky game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was just, as a kid, I can't tell how many times when I did play it or my friends would play it, I would just laugh out loud at some of the dialogue because it was just it was meta humor back before that was a thing. It was funny. It was just genuinely entertaining.
Yep. Witty and endearing.
Witty. That's the word I was thinking of. Was witty. So yeah, those are my Mount Rushmore games, man. We got wrestling in there, we got a little platforming action, we got some racing, and we got some shooting. So I feel like it's pretty good coverage there.
Pretty good spread.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate from my business partners for not throwing Smash in my Mount Rushmore, but
yeah, but that's because you like the later ones better. That's all. That's what we'll say. You're playing Ultimate, so. Well, listen, man. That's actually a good segue before we wrap up here to what's going on with Tech Selma, man. What do you guys? You got some events coming up then?
Just our standard locals and stuff. Nothing big. I guess we do have somewhat big. We got FallsCon, which is like a local Comic-Con gaming convention type thing that's going on the 25th of March, I believe.
Okay, so coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
Nice.
That's gonna be.
Are you
Wichita
hosting
Falls,
a tournament
Texas.
there? Or?
Yeah, we will be hosting a tournament there with a $250 pot bonus
nice.
if anybody cares.
All right.
So if you are in the Texas, Oklahoma area, we'd love to see you, Wichita Falls. Again, you can find all of that at any social media, really. Just Texoma Esports. That's TEXOMA, if anybody doesn't know how to spell it.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, we're there. If we're not, let me know so we can be.
Awesome, man. Well, I definitely want to jump on and game with you and play some Smash over, on the Switch at least, just to see what. Even though I know the online connectivity is not always the best. So if I lose, that's the reason. It's because my connection sucks.
That's everybody's
obviously.
Reason.
That's exactly. My connection just sucked, man. But listen, dude, I know I text you about this. Come visit, man. We'll play some Smash locally. We'll play till 5 a.m, bro. It'll be a good time.
All right, man. All right. I'll show you how to play.
All right, Derek, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. I had a great time with you. And thank you for listening, guys. If you're enjoying this, remember, all month long, we're talking about Nintendo consoles, which means next month I'm going to be wrapping up with the Nintendo GameCube. Now, Derek, you're not going to be on that episode with me, but do you have any quick thoughts on the GameCube as a whole?
It's a pretty solid system.
Yeah. You didn't own that one either, though, did you?
Not till I was adult. Now I've got 2 in my closet.
Nice. There you go.
It's very cool. It was created in a way to be somewhat portable, so you can bring it over to your friend's house and play.
Yeah.
And it probably has the contender for the greatest Smash game, which is Smash Melee, that still has a very solid backing behind it, going on 23 years now.
It's 20. So. Oh, it's over 20. I know that.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy, but
nice.
People are still competitive. And for people that complain about unfair matchups and stuff, I just want to point out that Yoshi in that game was considered a very, very bad character. A few months ago, a player just won 2 majors tournaments in Smash Melee with solo Yoshi, using only Yoshi. Yep. So
okay,
changing the game. So
he's that
practice,
good.
Practice.
Absolutely. Hey, speaking of Mario, are you going to go see the Mario movie when it comes out?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, me too. Yeah, just
absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, I'm pretty.
After this, I got to go watch the trailer that just dropped today.
Yes, I watched it. It's really good. Yeah, go check it out.
Watched it yet,
it's got new footage, so I think you'll like it.
It's a shame on Nintendo for not releasing that movie tomorrow on Mario Day.
I know, right? Well, yeah, really, especially since it's a Friday. They could have very easily. I mean, they moved it up a little bit already. I'm very excited. We're actually probably not going to see it opening night because we're going to be out of town when it comes out, and we want to see it with Beth's sister and her daughter as well because they're really excited. So we're going to have to wait until we get back, but it'll be okay. Just don't send me any spoilers. And
I probably won't watch it on opening night. I worked in a movie theater for years, and I avoid those crowds like the plague.
100%. Yeah, I don't blame you in the least. Oh man, well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. I will be back next week to talk GameCube, and again, guys, if you like the show, let people know. Spread the word. Tell them there's a great podcast that represents your generation, the generation of Nintendo 64, of Super Nintendo, of Nintendo GameCube. That is our generation. We are Generation S. So, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye.